Good afternoon. We have breaking news, and I'm Bakhtiar Sanov. President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev has arrived in Washington for a working visit at the invitation of U.S. President Donald Trump. President Ilham Aliyev was welcomed by officials at Joint Base AnewZ military facility. U.S. President Donald Trump is scheduled to hold separate meetings on Friday in Washington with Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. According to his official agenda, the Armenian Prime Minister's office has confirmed that Pashinyan will be in the United States on Thursday and Friday. Following the bilateral meetings, the three leaders are expected to make a joint announcement, according to the U.S. administration. The discussions are aimed at promoting peace, prosperity, and enhanced economic cooperation in the region. Now we are exploring expectations from the August 8th White House meetings between Donald Trump, President Ilham Aliyev, and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, and the potential impact on the region if the meeting produces results. With our very own Orkan Amashov and the head of the Department of Center for Analysis of International Relations in Baku, Wasif Husseinov. Orkan, let's first begin with you.
Thank you.
What do you think? In your opinion, can Trump broker a framework agreement or declaration that both Armenia and Azerbaijan can publicly support?
Thank you very much, Bakhtiar. It's great to be here. I think that some form of a framework document entailing basic principles is indeed in the realm of possibility, but I don't expect Azerbaijan and Armenia to sign what is widely and officially referred to as the Agreement on Peace and Establishment of Interstate Relations, the text of which was finalized on the 13th of March 2025. What I expect there will be a joint declaration. Probably we cannot exclude the possibility of two separate declarations. We are in the realm of conjecture, we are not entirely sure, but some form of some document, official document with proper signatures naturally, committing the sides, the parties to signing the peace deal when the right circumstances emerge, is something that I confidently expect to be attained in Washington. Tomorrow is a most important day, 8th of August, as you mentioned earlier. There will be one bilateral meeting between Armenian Prime Minister and US President. That will take place first. Then there will be bilateral meeting between President Aliyev and President Trump. And then there will be trilateral meeting. It is this meeting, this congregation, largely referred to as the Washington Peace Summit. I think it could be referred to from three different perspectives, or a three-dimensional sort of summit. One is, of course, bilateral relation between Azerbaijan, US, and Armenia, US. This is one element. Bilateral Azerbaijani-Armenian agenda, which could manifest itself in the form of memorandum of understanding. And there's also a third dimension, which is about these three countries together and proactive US involvement in the South Caucasus.
So, Wasif, what about you? What do you think? Could this summit revive discussions on reopening regional connectivity transport corridors, such as the Zangezur corridor, under mutually acceptable conditions?
You know, actually, there have been a lot of rumors about the meeting over the past several days, and still news information, new leaks from the tomorrow's meeting are coming. Just a couple of minutes ago, we heard a new leak of information about the details of tomorrow's meeting. And if this information is accurate, tomorrow's meeting is going to be historic in the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace process, with substantial fundamental shift in regional dynamics, not only in terms of the progress on the peace process, but also overall geopolitics, connectivity, and all other aspects of Armenia-Azerbaijan relations, as well as the geopolitics of the South Caucasus. And in that case, if something is going to be achieved on the Zangezur corridor, which, according to the new information coming from Washington, is on the agenda, something that is unexpected, that was unexpected for us experts in the South Caucasus in Azerbaijan, is going to happen. According to the latest information, a new framework for the Zangezur corridor has been agreed upon. It is going to be called Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity. Something commercial is going to be achieved there. The United States is going to be involved, and more ambitiously the United States wants to take a central role in the new regional security order. Considering all this information coming from Washington, I would prefer at the moment to wait for official announcements and to comment on the meeting only after this, because according to the current information we have, it is going to be really fundamental. It is going to be a game changer for the entire South Caucasus, and I would say it would create very different security order in the South Caucasus that we have had since the collapse of the Soviet Union until now.
I'm sorry, if I may ask, Vasil, when you say that there will be new sort of operational legal framework for the management of Zengezur corridor, is it really the most important part of the discussion there? I know we are yet to hear official announcements. We are merely thinking about it in the context of what is likely to happen. Do you think that what you and we discussed this international presence last time? We talked about some form of third-party involvement, international third-party involvement, satisfying Azerbaijani demands regarding unobstructed nature of that access, and also not militating against Armenia's sovereignty sensibilities. How do you envision that framework, which you say is likely to be announced tomorrow?
Last month, President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan talked about the Zengezur corridor and all potential arrangements again, and he said that Azerbaijan remains consistent on its position. We don't want to see the representatives of Armenia or any other country when we pass through the Armenian territory when traveling between two parts of Azerbaijan. In that context, something that if that's going to be achieved tomorrow in Washington, it is going probably in line with these demands of the Azerbaijani side. Azerbaijan has been quite clear and consistent in this approach, and according to the agreements we have with Armenia, Armenia has taken the obligation to provide unimpeded passage between two parts of Azerbaijan. And now, according to the information we have, tomorrow's meeting is going to produce something like that. But very interestingly, without the involvement of Russia's border guards, it is also another very significant change in regional dynamics, and it's also demonstrating the decline of Russia's presence in the South Caucasus. And also, it is very important from our perspective that Azerbaijan has been able to reach its fundamental requirements from the Armenian side concerning the modalities and status of the Zengezur corridor. And here, one important element is that while the corridor is going to be opened according to the latest information, but Armenia's concerns are also taken into consideration. It's very important for the Armenian side that the corridor is going to be under jurisdiction, sovereignty of the Armenian side, and Azerbaijan has always demonstrated respect and understanding to this demand, emphasizing that Azerbaijan has no plan or intention to violate Armenia's territorial integrity or sovereignty. So it looks like we have been able to reach mutually acceptable solution on the Zengezur corridor, and very importantly, something very new with the involvement of the United States, a rising geopolitical actor in the South Caucasus. Until recently, the United States, particularly during the period of Biden administration, was almost absent in the regional dynamics. From time to time, we were hearing some demands from the Biden administration, but was very one-sided, very biased towards Azerbaijan, was not considering Azerbaijan's concerns and interests. But very differently from the Biden administration approach, the Trump administration has demonstrated understanding to Azerbaijan's concerns as well. And this is the reason why now we are very close to a very significant breakthrough in negotiations on Zengezur corridor as well as on peace treaty. I agree with you that while peace treaty itself is unlikely to be signed tomorrow, but some framework agreement, some letter of intent is very possible, it's very likely, and it is going to provide important contribution to our efforts to reach a lasting peace with Armenia, signing peace treaty, and also opening regional connectivity routes.
So, Orkan, what do you think? Will the United States offer a specific incentive such as aid, investment or security guarantees to push both Azerbaijan and Armenia toward compromise?
Well, I think from what Vasyl has just said, and on the basis of what we have heard over the past few months, it looks like that although the process between Azerbaijan and Armenia, in principle and in all of its fundamental aspects, this process remains bilateral, the connectivity is the issue wherein some form of third-party involvement is necessary, and the necessity is actually rooted in the 10 November declaration adopted in 2020.
Yes.
That article is no longer applicable in the context of Russian border guards because Russia is completely taken out of the landscape, but still that void should be filled in. And in that sense, it looks like that some form of arrangement with the US involvement entailing some company, commercial operator, probably registered in Armenia, regulated by Armenian legislation, but still having a third-party element ingrained in it, will be dealing with the management of the corridor without undermining Armenia's sovereignty, technically speaking, although there is a third-party presence there undoubtedly, with Azerbaijan seemingly finding this arrangement as being perfectly in line with its fundamental unobstructed access requirement, allowing two countries to move forward. That is what is currently, I think, happening. And I believe that I'm inclined to concur with Vasyl on the point of something fundamental being announced tomorrow. Probably, Bakhtiar, that letter of intent to which Vasyl referred,
yes,
or maybe letter of protocol of intent or memorandum of understanding, it doesn't really matter what the official title is going to be. The substance of it will be designed along the following framework. It will probably entail basic fundamental principles, enshrine the collective bilateral commitment to signing peace deal itself at a later stage. Plus, of course, it will entail some provision regarding connectivity, with what we just said being properly incorporated into that document. And that will be the beginning of a new age for these two countries. So we will have sort of a new written, officially signed institutional and legal framework for Azerbaijan and Armenia to pursue this line of bilateral negotiations leading to that ultimate comprehensive peace deal.
Now, Ubi Shbandor joins us from Washington. Ubi, welcome to the program.
Pleasure.
Ubi, what do you think about this meeting in Washington? Your opinion?
Well, Washington is a buzz right now that we're going to have President Aliyev of Azerbaijan and his previous longtime adversary from Armenia coming together after decades of conflict and sitting down and signing a document that will essentially set the pathway towards eventually finalizing a peace agreement here in the White House, with President Trump brokering yet another peace process, as we've seen the White House broker a number of these deals recently, ending that conflict between Thailand and Cambodia, between India and Pakistan, and brokering a deal, a ceasefire between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, and of course the Abraham Accords that were signed by the Trump administration in that first term of the President Trump's presidency. Of course, that deal was a historic deal between the Arabian Gulf countries and Israel, and now the South Caucasus. So this is certainly a very big deal for President Trump and the White House, and the fact that this agreement is going to be signed here in Washington, not in Europe, not in Moscow, is very telling on a number of fronts, giving U.S. engagement with the Russians, with Ukraine. What we do know is that in addition to this document that will be signed between the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia, that we will also likely see strategic partnership agreements being signed between the U.S. and Azerbaijan that will essentially set a new way forward for those bilateral relations between Baku and Washington that will cover energy, defense cooperation, transportation. So that will be another unprecedented achievement here in Washington with President Aliyev meeting with President Trump, and a number of senior level meetings that will also include members of Congress and with Vice President J.D. Vance. What officials, Azerbaijani officials, have been telling me is that this is not just a relaunch of American-Azerbaijani relations, which had been stagnating until President Trump won the election, but essentially a launch of a new era of Azerbaijani and American relations. So that will also be a very significant and historical diplomatic milestone.
Ubi, if a breakthrough is reached at this meeting, how might this reshape the geopolitical balance in the South Caucasus, particularly in relation to Russia and Iran?
Just to follow up Bakhtiar's question, if I may, Bakhtiar, with your permission. Yes. So we understand that Russia will react in one way or another. Clearly, they are very unhappy. The fact that the meeting is taking place in Washington speaks volumes. Yes. It's not taking place in Brussels and Moscow. What is your feeling? What will be their reaction, you think, from Moscow, in particular in the light of the fact that President Trump now putting a massive pressure on Russia in the context of war in Ukraine as well?
Good.
That's right. President Trump has set a deadline that is coming up very shortly for Vladimir Putin of Russia to either agree to sit at the negotiating table with the Ukrainians with American oversight, or face punishing secondary sanctions on all Russian oil being sold on the international market. Those sanctions, secondary sanctions, what that means is that countries like China and India that buy the bulk of Russian oil, of which the Russian economy is entirely dependent upon, those countries would face significant secondary sanctions that would make it very difficult for refineries in those countries to receive that oil. Otherwise, they will face the very real likelihood of being disconnected from the international banking system. American secondary sanctions are extremely serious, and given the U.S. essential control over the internet SWIFT system, it could lead to significant economic impact to any, or financial impact or ruin for anyone that would buy that Russian oil on the international markets. Now, this meeting in Washington, D.C. with President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan is also taking place within the context of the recent visit to Moscow by Steve Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy. There might be a meeting in the very near future between President Trump, Putin, and Zelensky. But we've heard those promises coming from Moscow before and not really materializing. This is very significant because what the U.S. cares about in this, in expanding President Trump's peace legacy, is also establishing business-to-business ties and energy security. We've heard President Trump really focus in on energy security, new markets for American liquefied natural gas, and pushing the Europeans to diversify their energy imports and not to be dependent upon Russian-sourced, natural gas. And that's where Azerbaijan comes in, and with an agreement that essentially ensures a blueprint and a pathway forward, so that would lead to an eventual finalization of a peace agreement. That would also open up the South Caucasus to American investment, and that would be also very significant, given that Azerbaijani and American relations had really been in a cold state for so long, and what officials were telling me is that the Biden administration was just not viewed as an honest broker. They were not interested in building a strategic partnership with Azerbaijan, a country that had played an important role in the American Central Asian line of supply to American forces in Afghanistan for years, and now there is a real feeling that a leadership-to-leadership relationship between President Aliyev and President Trump can be established that would involve, Syria, Turkey, Iran. That would, it would open up American trade through that critical east-west corridor that Azerbaijan is establishing. So it would be on the strategic energy security front, on trade, and potentially defense cooperation, something that we have not really seen historically between the United States and Azerbaijan. So all things are now possible with this new chapter that we're seeing being open here, with President Aliyev coming to Washington, meeting with President Trump, signing that letter of intent with Prime Minister Pashinyan. And of course, President Trump wants the world to see that he wants to end the forever wars and to be seen as the principal peacemaker on the international global arena.
Ubi, thank you very much for joining us from Washington. We are grateful for your valuable insights. Thank you very much. Now we continue with Wasif. Wasif, might a peace declaration help unlock stalled regional infrastructure projects like the Middle Corridor, benefiting trade and energy connectivity?
Yeah, absolutely. Zengezur Corridor is being seen as a very vital element in the upgrading of Middle Corridor. It is not only Azerbaijan or Armenia that has been interested in this project, in the expansion of Middle Corridor and inclusion of Armenia in this context, but also wider regional players from China to Europe, Central Asian actors are all focused on the opening of Zengezur Corridor in order to further upgrade the Middle Corridor, shorten the route between China and Europe, and also providing, contributing to peace and prosperity in the region, and also not only in the South Caucasus, but also in the wider region in Central Asia. Last year, Biden administration was very persistently demanding that the opening of Zengezur Corridor is going to provide a new passage for the Central Asian countries to reach outside world without depending on Russia and China. From that perspective, it is something very geopolitical. It is not only a matter of economic interest of Armenia or Azerbaijan, it's a matter of wider geopolitics. And in that sense, the importance of the opening of Zengezur Corridor is very high. And also here, of course, the key element is under what conditions, with whose involvement Zengezur Corridor is going to be open. Because according to the previous arrangements, it was something different. Russia was supposed to be there. But now, against the background of Russia's declining as a regional actor due to the war in Ukraine and other issues, it looks like Russia is involuntarily withdrawing from the region and opening up opportunities for other players, particularly the United States, to take lead. So I agree with Obi that it is going to attract investments from the United States and Europe to the South Caucasian country. And if we manage to proceed through this process peacefully without provoking any tensions with other players from Iran or Russia, it is going to make very significant contribution to peace and prosperity in the South Caucasus, connecting all of us, as well as connecting Central Asia, Europe, China through our territories, contributing to their economic prosperity as well.
And thank you very much, Wasif, for your insights. And we continue with Orkan. Orkan, what do you think? Would progress at the meetings in Washington improve Armenian-Turkey relations, which are indirectly affected by Armenia-Azerbaijan dynamics?
Absolutely. It's a very, very central question, Bakhtiar, indeed. These two processes, Azerbaijani-Armenian peace process and Turkish-Armenian normalization, are inextricably intertwined. If we have a peace deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia, the normalization will reach its logical conclusion. Something should happen in this track, in Baku-Yerevan track, for corresponding progress to be made there within the context of Turkish-Armenian normalization. What will be the Turkish-Armenian reaction to the Memorandum of Understanding letter of intent? Yes. Probably some progress will be attained therein as well. I don't think it will lead to full border opening. I think what should happen, it is that we should sign a proper peace deal and Zengezur Corridor should be opened, and then of course Turkish-Armenian normalization will reach its ultimate logical conclusion. Turkey is naturally closely following all of these developments. When this Zengezur Corridor being managed by American commercial operator, this idea emerged. The initial information that we received, and this was reported by the Middle East Eye, that idea was initially proposed by Turkish side and then supported by both Azerbaijan and Armenia, and then we received information which did militate against the initial proposition. But Turkey is very much interested. Turkey is interested in the acceleration of Azerbaijani-Armenian peace process, and effectively what is happening in the region now, it could be described as almost irreversible decline of Russian influence in the South Caucasus, with Azerbaijan and Armenia signing peace deal and building this House of Caucasus, of course naturally with Armenia joining the infrastructure created by Azerbaijan and Georgia. We also will notice some increase in Turkish influence in the South Caucasus. All of these developments are incredibly important also in the wider context of the middle corridor. This is a very important moment. Let me be very clear, from what Ubey said and also what Vasif articulated, it is very clear we don't know what will be signed.
Yes.
We are in the realm of conjecture. Will it be a memorandum of understanding? Perhaps there is another possibility. Maybe the provisions of the draft peace agreement on peace and interstate establishment of interstate relations will be initialed. As we know, initialing the agreement does not amount to actually signing it in full. That signing will take place and the treaty will come into force only after those extra treaty obstacles related to Armenia's constitution and OSCE Minsk group are sorted out. The Armenian constitution cannot be sorted out anytime soon. At least it will not happen this year because that requires a referendum. That means that full achievement of the peace treaty will not take place by the end of probably 2026. But will that letter of intent to which Vasif and Ubey referred entail one provision committing both sides to jointly apply to effect the dissolution of OSCE Minsk group? We can see that provision in the letter of intent.
Okay, thank you very much for your insights as well. So we have come to the conclusion of the breaking news. We'll be back with the latest updates. Stay tuned to AnewZ.